Okay. Hi, everyone. I think we're going to start. This is a man who likes to start on time. Hello. I'm. You get it for the people who are here. I'm Lisa Latant, and I think I've met most of you. And I'm part of the committee. All right, I'm the whole committee for the retirement group. But we have no arguments. We have no arguments during our meetings, so that's the good thing. We do this now about every other month. I think for the next one, I'll run it by you. I thought we could have a panel of people saying what they learned in retirement and what they're still looking for. So if you're interested in being on that panel, I know I have a lot to add to that. Let me know. So we do have handouts on the back table. Look like this. If you want to get them, it'll give you something to write on. And Don brought calendars and pens and everything else. So I'm so delighted you're here. It's to say this is timely is an understatement. And to help us navigate our Medicare and the upcoming changes, we're very lucky to have this man, Don Freedman, who's practiced elder and disability law with, are you still with Rosenberg, Freedman, and Lee in Newton for over 40 years? 50 years. Sorry. He was 10 when he started.
That's amazing.
He's been named the best lawyer, super lawyer. You don't wear a cape, though, right?
No.
A super lawyer, okay. A Scholar Mentor Award in 2009 by the Massachusetts Continuing Legal Education for outstanding contributions to legal education. He has many other accolades, too many to mention here. He's past board chair of the Alzheimer's Association of Massachusetts and the Learning Prep School for Children with Complex Learning Profiles. As we all know, he's a longtime member of Temple Emmanuel and Minion member. He's active with the Bereavement Committee, the Minion, as I said, the Inclusion Committee, and the Stars of David program for Jewish adults with special needs. We're delighted to have him today, and Don, take it away.
All right, thank you. That was more than you needed to know. So there are a couple of other things just to point out. There are booklets in the back, too, on the SHINE program. You can take one that'll explain what the program I'm part of and that does the Medicare counseling that I'll be talking about a lot, but it'll save me the time of explaining that. And there's another flyer on the open enrollment period, which is something else I'm going to be talking about now because this is a very important time of the year for this program and the time when it's very easy, most easy to make changes in your plans. So this is it kind of ended up being a huge agenda of things to cover. It was kind of an overview of Medicare and enrollment and all of that side of things. It was also, we're in the season after the passage of the HR 1 or whatever name you're going to give that monster of a bill that has a lot of implications for not only Medicare, but also Medicaid and people getting help on the health connector, really on the whole health insurance, public health insurance side of things, which encompasses about 50% of the population, is in one of those programs or another, and heavily impacted by the new law.
Say that again. 50% of the population of this country is
on some combination of Obamacare, health connector stuff for adults under 65, Mass Health, or in Medicaid, called nationally Mass Health in Massachusetts, and Medicare.
It's echoing for some reason.
Okay. I thought I solved it by using this. Is that better? Better. I'll speak up. I know it's an endemic problem. When I was getting ready for this talk and coming over here tonight, I thought back. You mentioned also the continuing legal ed stuff. I've done a lot of trainings in that area, and one thought came to mind about a review that I got after a talk some years ago, and the review was not funny enough. Now, the talk was about end-of-life decision-making, irreversible coma, intractable pain, and those are the positive side of it. So, and this, I'm sorry, but this one is not going to win the funny awards either. But let me get right into these things. I'm going to cover some highlights of things, try to mention areas that might be of interest. There are just so many potential topics to cover. Really like to spend a lot of time being guided by questions from you. If you ask, I'm really inviting questions, but please, even though they may be coming from a very private, personal place, and you've got a context for the question that's very specific to you, I don't know what that is, and it may not be of as much interest to everybody else. So what I'm going to try to do with any question you have, like, I'm 64, and what do I do now? What about late enrollment? That would be a great question. I'll generalize from the question and try to respond to it and give you as much information as I can. But I think that's probably the way I'm going to end up doing it. I brought like 12 pages of things, of highlights of notes to try to mention as much as I can. All right, so let me talk about just briefly, there's not much out there really yet, and not much of it happens right away, but let me talk about the federal law that passed, HR 1, big, beautiful, whatever you want to call the thing. It's got a technical number, but let me talk about that. In a couple of respects, it took the position that it really wasn't making a change in some of the laws, but it was just changing the implementation schedule. And this related to several things that were done during the Biden year. Biden proposed new national staffing requirements for nursing homes. This is a major concern across the country, a little bit less in Massachusetts and states that exercise more control, but it's a huge problem nationally. So the bill left them in place, but postponed implementation for 9 years. It did that also with other things. It has another area where that same sort of approach was used. It's a little surreptitious because it didn't eliminate the staffing requirements. It just put them on hold for a decade. There are many drugs that are now subject to review and are the objects of negotiation. Medicare, for the first time, is permitted to negotiate drug pricing both for Part D, for the drug plans, and also for Medicare Advantage. The VA has always been able to do this and has been very effective. They're a major consumer and they have a lot of leverage. But political reasons, Medicare wasn't given that option. They have the option now. They've had it for several years, and we're seeing the first fruits of it. The first group of 10 drugs are coming through now with new pricing this year. The second batch of 10 will come up in another 2 years. And I'll go into a little detail on some of the changes because they are stupendous. The overall, of the 10 drugs, the average reduction in price from 2023 is 60%. And includes Eliquis, Januvia, Jardiance, Xarelto. Includes a lot of drugs that are very expensive and that are the objects of great concern by a lot of people. These are drugs that don't have a generic version. They don't have a close biological. There's a word for that. Similar biological. And so this is very important. So anyway, the new law now puts some new restrictions on Medicare's ability to negotiate pricing. So we're expecting to see that slow down. The other things that the new law has done is to authorize the adoption of some new prior approval requirements for certain procedures. Now, prior approval means that before you have a knee replacement, you have to get authorization from your insurance company for the knee replacement. And the knee replacement can deny or it can require that you go through some other treatment protocol first and show that that was ineffective. These are among cost containment procedures. Now, Medicare itself, traditional Medicare does not use this approach except for a couple of things, except for durable medical equipment and a couple of other very small areas. but it's a major feature of the Medicare Advantage programs, and I'll talk about that comparison a little bit later in the remarks. But they're not in Medicare, but now there's a pilot program going in 6 states where they're going to use prior approval procedures to test this out. And the expectation is that they'll be implemented in a broader way over the coming years, and that also other cost containment procedures will also be adopted by Medicare, restricting choice of providers and other things that Medicare Advantage plans do to contain costs. And this is also of great concern. Partly because, so part of this is that the agency that's going to make decisions about prior approval is a separate contractor. The Medicare is going to contract with an agency to do this. The agency is going to be compensated in part on its success in saving money. So think about that for a second. The prior approval, the person in charge of prior approval is going to get paid based on saying no. It's going to be denials, it's a direct, conflict of interest for the decision maker. So, so there's a lot of that stuff going on at a number of different levels. This won't be something that jumps out to you as a parent now, but it's in there, and it's just a signal of a danger to come. So what else? The negotiate prices. Oh, the other is that all right, so the number, there are several estimates around of the number of people who are going to lose health insurance as a result of the new law. It's probably around 10 and 13 million seems to be the number people are hanging on. And this extends across the board. It extends to Medicaid, it extends to the Obamacare programs for adults, and it includes also Medicare. The largest group, there's actually expected a 3.5 million person cut in the Medicare rolls, and it seems to be primarily the result of a decision that the law is going to restrict Medicare eligibility for a number of classes of lawfully present immigrants who now qualify for Medicare because, in part, they've been paying into Medicare. They're working and paying into Medicare, paying Medicare taxes, paying federal taxes, and they've been here for years. There are a lot of those people. So the expectation is that a lot of them are being cut. They're lawfully here, but the reasons why they're lawfully here are being chopped. They're not being singled out, but they're eliminating some of the safety, danger situations. They're going to reducing routine, immigration to the United States. And they're saying that someone is illegally here now, although he was legally here yesterday, but because they've changed the definition of who they're going to accept as legal, they make them into something else. So there's a lot of that, and that's 3.5 million people is expected to get hit by that. Another kind of overall approach that cuts across all 3 areas is that they're requiring an increase in paperwork and in the procedures, frequency of procedures for checking things, and paperwork and shorter turnaround times on responses when people get letters in the mail. They're eliminating granting exceptions to extend the period of time necessary to make a response to something where someone can't find their birth certificate or something else they've requested. They're making repeated requests for the same information. The expectation is that many people aren't going to comply. They don't know what to read in the mail now. They don't know what's real and what's advertising, and they don't have help. They don't have family. They don't have friends who can help them guide through this. Agencies like Shine, that's most of what we do, is help people deal with those issues and getting them straightened out. But this really is it's a strategy that has been ingrained in the system now. It's just to make it harder to stay on, So you're lost to it without the government having to say that, well, we didn't cut him. You know, maybe he did meet standards, but he didn't get his paperwork in. So, all right, so that's HR 1. Anything else about that? Oh, there's another postponement, actually, of that 9 years. I haven't quite figured out why 9, but there's another. This is also that came up from the Obama period. There was a new set of regulations that were implemented as a final rule in 2023 that would have required states to streamline enrollment into programs that lower health care costs for beneficiaries with low income and low assets. So it was a streamlining of that. It was to use some of the same standards for all of them, the same paperwork for all, instead of having, if you're in subsidized housing and mass health, you know, instead of having separate paperwork for everything. And that also has been put off for 9 years, same 9 years. They postponed the final rule that had been approved completely before and passed public muster. So, all right, so for 2026, a couple of good things are happening. This is not having to do with the new law. That really isn't being implemented yet. But one thing is, I mentioned, is the negotiated prices on medications. That's really going to help a lot. This past year, there was also a $2,000 cap put on out-of-pocket expenses for prescription drugs. That is by law was keyed into a inflation adjustment figure. So it is going up, but only by $100. It had gone down to $2,000 from $8,000 the year before. So that's made a lot of progress. It was much higher earlier on in the law's life. So that's really a saving grace for people who end up with a medication that just is very expensive. There is a prescription payment plans. Was a new element in the law last year. This allowed you to take your expectations of costs for your drugs and spread them out over the year. It's very helpful because some of the drugs were subject to a deductible. So the result was that in January and February, you would get creamed if you were in this sort of situation. And then you might have no drug expenses at all after June. So this allowed people to, without any cost or other difficulty, to spread things out over that period. And this has been strengthened this year. That's even stronger now. You will be paying a little bit more for the Medicare Part B and D premiums. Part B is for general medical services, outpatient stuff, and Part D is for prescription drugs. The drug companies are permitted to charge a little bit more for those. And what else do I need? I mean, those are things you'd expect anyway, just cost of living stuff. These aren't so important. Prior authorization, drug prices. I think that's. Well, there's a great deal has been done in recent years. This is also on a Medicare and Medicaid issue. There are many people who are eligible for both. Medicare because of their work history and Medicaid because of their income and asset status. Now, the asset rules for relating to Medicaid have really quite liberalized in recent years. A lot of it relates to people who are in kind of middle or moderate income situations. And many people are in this dual eligible category. There are 13 or 15 million or so in the U.S. that are in that category. And that is, there are going to be some losses in that with some changes in the programming. It really provides a very, very comprehensive service base, particularly for people who are disabled under 65 and very low income and assets. There's a concern also just about indirect impacts from the new law on the national deficit. The deficit has automatic triggers on reduction in budgets across the board. And the concern is that with the ballooning debt, the Medicare is going to get hit, it would be subject to automatic cuts. Could be as much as 20% in the next 3 years. So that's going to have a direct impact. It'll have a flow through on eligibility requirements, cost pay. Yeah.
Question, and we're going to use the mic because we are filming this, so it'll pick up. So when you say there are going to be cuts, would it be in the personnel or in the actual program and the benefits people get?
Well, Medicare. It would be in the benefits. It would. Medicare would. They have control over what they charge people. And part of it. There was actually an increase in physician reimbursement this year, which is also impacts adversely on the amount of money available for treatment expenses. So we're going to have to just see and watch this. But the concern is that the budget, the whole structure of the budget, the extent of the deficit, the extent to which the tax continuation provisions are going to have an adverse impact on government revenue and will have an impact on all of the programs, and especially for vulnerable people. So I think what I'd like to do is first let me say a little bit about open enrollment. Medicare is Medicare has a number of times during the year when it's possible to make changes. There are the general enrollment periods and special enrollment periods. There are about 25 different enrollment periods, depending on your circumstance and needs. So there's some flexibility built into that system. But the big one is in the fall, and why these dates, I don't know, it's October 15th to December 7th. It's been that way for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years at least, in the fall, when it's possible to make any number of changes in your program. You can go from just original Medicare to Medicare Advantage or the other way around, and you can make changes in your drug program is really the big thing that people can consider. So I would encourage you to use this time to actually do a review, and don't, and this is particularly of your drug plans. Drug companies, unlike homeowners insurance or car insurance, which really don't change structurally much from year to year. There may be policy changes buried there somewhere, but it's not something you really give much thought to. The prescription drug plans change in very important ways and without much notice often. The drugs which are covered by a company, listed in their formulary, it's called. It's a list of the drugs they cover. They can make changes in that during the year and at the end of the year. So next year's drug coverage may look very different. They're not required to cover every drug. They're required to cover the majority of drugs in every class, but they drop off. And people will often find that particularly an expensive drug may be a reason why there's pressure on the company to drop that drug from the formulary and not try to cover it at all. So that's a change. Premiums change. What pharmacies are in preferred networks change. Everything changes. And so it's important, even if you were happy with your plan this year, it's important to review it or have it reviewed. There is a vehicle for doing that yourself through there's a plan finder, a software program that's within Medicare itself that you can access through the Medicare.gov. There's stuff in the booklet that I have there that talks about that. But the Shine, it's kind of the tax season for Shine is in the fall when people come in for review. It doesn't take long, but we can look at your drugs against the list and very quickly generate information for you to make a decision about whether to just continue with your current plan or to switch, and we can even enroll you.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. Could you just go over what the SHINE program is for people who don't know?
Okay. The SHINE program is serving the health insurance needs of people. It focuses on Medicare. We handle Medicaid too if people are on Medicare. We don't handle the adult insurance programs, the Obamacare programs for people under 65. We don't do that. But the program is composed of volunteers who are trained and tested and annually and certified by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs and by a unit of the Health and Human Services in Washington. It's a long training program. We get mentored for a year, and then we can start working on this. It's the best supported volunteer program I've ever been involved with. We have professional staff in each of the 6 regions in Massachusetts. There are about 600 counselors in Massachusetts, and the program has no financial interest in anything that we list. The counselors have no financial interest in anything that we not recommend. We inform and make you a good consumer. That's the mission. So I would encourage you, we work out of the senior centers, keeps the cost down. We have little Nook offices in the senior centers across the state. And there's a list on the back of the booklet. There is a list of the phone numbers to call for the area councils on aging or senior centers. Generally make the appointments. They set up the appointments for the counselors for this purpose. You don't have to go to the center that's in your town. You can go to any center anywhere. And especially later in the open enrollment period when the big centers are filled up, then people can go farther afield. You can do appointments in person, by Zoom, by phone. There's also an 800 number. You can do this directly through Medicare in Washington. It's a bit of a wait, and you don't get the personal attention, but that's another option. So that's SHINE. The information is also strictly confidential. We don't, we've got heavily trained in that. Now with, so why use it, the open enrollment period? You can use it also with regard to Medicare Advantage plans. If you have a plan and you're dissatisfied with a limited referral network for specialists or hospitals or rehabs, if they've refused prior approval requests or they have treatment protocol requirements, you have to do this before we'll give you that. And geographical limits, you're limited to basically to Massachusetts except for emergency services. But you're limited to a network of rehabs and hospitals and physicians who participate in the program. Prescription drug plans, people sometimes are dissatisfied with customer service, or they see premium increases in costs, decreased quality ratings by Medicare for the programs, and deletion of drugs that they need, deletion of generic drugs from the formulary. All of those are reasons why people end up being unhappy. But you can switch from original Medicare to Medicare Advantage or back the other way. You can switch among Medicare Advantage plans or among drug plans. So it really gives you a lot of choices. Now there were kind of 3 major, thinking of things to cover, there were 3 things that I thought would be of use. 3 sort of scenarios that people are getting into. But one involves, let me just stay what they are and we'll see how much interest there is. One of them involves the circumstance of a person who is now over age 65 but continuing to work, but at 69, say, is considering retiring and just is still on an active employee group health plan at work, but knows he's going to lose that and wants to know what he's going to do. He's heard about late enrollment penalties, and he knows he's already 4 years beyond the time when he could have enrolled. Is he subject to something there? So what's that terrain look like? Is that a topic that would be of interest to people basically working over 65? It's a good topic. Okay. All right. Another one is people under 65, working or not, 63, 64, and knowing that they've got the 65 thing that relates to Medicare, thinking that they have to enroll. Do they have to enroll? What do they have to enroll in? There's all this part A, B, C, D, all of this stuff. What do they do? Is that a good topic? All over, mostly over 65.
Explain that to our children.
All right, well, I'll pass on that one. The other is called IRMA. Do you know about IRMA? I figured that would be a good one. All right, so IRMA is the income-related monthly adjustment amount. That's what IRMA stands for. IRMAA. It's basically a supplementary premium that's required with regard to Part B, the outpatient piece of Medicare, and Part D, the prescription drug piece. It could also be in Medicare Advantage with a drug component in Medicare Advantage. So the Part B premium this year is $185 a month. $185 for this past year. Oh, I had a projected number for next. I'll find it in a minute. It's probably going to go up. Everything's going up. It might go up 6% or something for next year. So IRMA applies to people with higher income, and of course, I meant to bring a chart. All right, I don't need a chart. If you have the income, if your income is under, as an individual, under about 106,000, you don't pay anything extra. Now, I have to say a word about what income is in this context, because it's a thing. It has there's a special income category called MAGI, M-A-G-I. It's modified adjusted gross income, and the way this works is that the Social Security is informed what your MAGI is based on your tax return. And if your tax return shows a MAGI of over 106, then you're going to get, or 212 for a couple, then you're going to have, each of you is going to get a supplemental assessment that, in addition to that bill that you're going to have to pay every month. Now, what is MAGI? Adjusted gross income is the basic piece of it. The M piece, the modified piece, is just something I've actually never seen in return, is tax-free interest income. I've got to think it's a small number for people. It's always zero on every return I've ever seen. So it's basically adjusted gross income. Now, adjusted gross income includes Social Security, and interest and dividends and work income and all of the stuff you expect as income. It also includes capital gains from the sale of your house. It also includes distributions from retirement accounts, at least taxable distributions. So, some distributions are charitable deductions from retirement accounts aren't taxable, but most of the things you take for MRD and most of the things you take to get money to live on, that's all taxable income. So the MRD, when you think about the income, it's not just your Social Security, which is what you think about as your income. It's all this other stuff as well. Also, with things like house or other real estate capital gains, you could have enormous bumps in a particular year. One year may not look at all like another. So this can, then people can all of a sudden find, particularly with the sale of a house, that they're assessed an IRMA that includes, $600,000 capital gain from the sale of their house, which would put them in the highest IRMA category of about $700 each per month. So all right, so let me explain what you can do about this. There are a couple of things to think about. One is that you can appeal it on the basis that the numbers are incorrect, or you filed an amended return with a different number, a lower number. That usually doesn't, the numbers are usually correct. I mean, it's based on numbers that you put in your tax return. They may have made a mistake in terms of what to draw on, but don't usually see that. There is another procedure for adjusting this. And it arises particularly because the tax year that Social Security uses to determine the income level is actually 2 years before the current. Like in 2025, the 2023 returns are the ones to which the IRS has the easiest access, because a lot of 2024 returns still haven't, but you don't have to finish filing until October. So they use that 2 year break, and the impact is that your income 2 years ago may be very different from your income today, particularly if your income is as a result of your retirement, for instance. Or the income could be very high 2 years ago because that's when you sold your house, and now it's just normal. So there is a procedure that you can make a request for reduction, adjustment in the IRMA based on certain factors. It's not on anything. If you just had a couple of terrible years with the market, doesn't help you. The defined category: marriage, divorce, death, the life-changing events. I thought death was a life-changing event. It's sort of, I get it, just funny. You don't think of it in that category, but it's there. But this is something with your, if you get you get a letter from Social Security telling you about the IRMA, it'll have some of this information in it. It's something you should talk to your accountant about. Your accountant will be familiar with this and with the form that's used. The Shine counselors can help you with that too. What we'd be asking you to do is to bring in your tax returns, at least the pages, including line 11 and 2A, and then we'd kind of go through it with you and see whether you meet the criteria for a change.
Is the sale of a house considered a life-changing event? When I retired, I did this because my income when I was working was a lot more than my income when I retired, and I felt like it was acceptable and I really did that.
There's a question about whether the sale of a house involves a life-changing event. It's not. Partly because what you have to show, what the facts have to show, is that your income now, your current income based on your living needs and situation now, is lower by at least one bracket than what it was 2 years ago. So if you sold your house 2 years ago, then that would establish a bracket. Your income now is much lower. Then doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't help because sale of a house isn't a life-changing event.
Does it help going forward, though?
Yeah, well, the other saving grace to this is that it's year by year. It's not a permanent revision.
Okay.
And they're going to review it. It's going to be based on your tax return each year. And at that point, things will stabilize. Typically, a few years after retirement, they're stable enough that your income shifts, even with major events, may not be so broad that it reaches a bracket. Wrong. All right. It can be fun. It's a good exercise. Yes.
They go back 2 years, or the average of the last 2 years?
No, they go back. They pick up the return from 2 years before.
Just
this
that
year,
year.
it's the 2023 return.
Okay.
That they're looking at.
All right, and then one quick other question about the drug. You said there was a $2,000 cap, and then did you say something that was new this year? You can amortize that, so to speak?
Go up to $2,100.
Say that again?
It's going up to just it's going up $100.
Okay, but,
So you're $100 more exposed to drug expenses.
all right, but did you say you still have to pay it all at once, or you can go through the year? Did you say something like that? No?
No, it's really, it's whenever the
Whenever it comes.
2100 accumulates.
Okay, all right, thank you.
What you'd see then is that your drug, when you went to the pharmacy to pick up the drugs, you'd be billed zero.
Sorry.
Let me say one other thing about drug costs and drugs that are covered by Part D. The focus of Part D was on the kind of drugs that were not covered under Medicare generally. And these were the prescriptions you get from your doctor for drugs you pick up at the pharmacy and self-administer. It's typically pills, tablets, it is some injections, insulin. It does not include anything delivered by infusion. It does not include things that have to be administered under any kind of medical supervision because of risk of side effects and other things happening quickly. And there's some other drugs are, it's not clear why they're included in this category, but there's some kind of risk issues with them. And with those, those are treated not under Part D ordinarily, but under Part B. They're part of outpatient medical treatments. So you do run into situations where a drug is treated under Part B, and if you're in the kind of Medicare plan with where you've got original Medicare plus a Medigap policy that's picking up the copays and the deductibles, then you'll find that there really is maybe no cost at all to you in some of the drugs. Some drugs are actually in both, and it depends on some other factor in terms of administration. So but if it's a zero cost and you're not in a very low income category where that's subsidized or the state's paying for it, then it's probably a Part B drug. Yeah.
From personal experience, I know that the drug plan you have matters. Does the pharmacy you use matter?
Well, that's very interesting. Does the pharmacy matter? What you'll see in the plan finder is that you can put in a number of pharmacies and actually see how it matters with regard to your drugs. There are several pharmacies are identified as being preferred or in-network, the two special categories and out-of-network. Those are the three categories that they list. It's not at all clear to me what the difference is between preferred and in-network. I think it has more to do with Medicare Advantage plans. You have to get a pharmacy in-network. But even among the pharmacies that are in the preferred category, it might be CVS, Walgreens, Union, could be in a preferred category for a drug, may have different drug prices. Same company, same drug. I'm just not familiar enough with how the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies and the pharmacy chains, how they ultimately set their prices. But we've had situations, particularly with more expensive drugs, where it's actually been substantially cost effective for them to get one drug from one pharmacy and the rest of their drugs from another, or to do one by mail and do the others in person. You're not going to run around town if it's $1 a month, but
Can you explain the donut?
it's gone.
The what?
It's gone. It's of historical interest only. Good. I'm glad I don't have
I don't
to.
eat donuts, so.
Yeah. No, this is a period of time, and a few years ago, where there was a period of time when the amount of help you were getting from your drug plan was very, very limited. So it was a very expensive time of the year, but it's gone. Yep.
Discovered that if you're getting drugs from a specialty pharmacy,
Yep.
then it pays to look around, because sometimes the plan will help subsidize the cost.
Yeah, right. Well, all right. The number thing that raises a good question. I mean, the specialty pharmacies particularly do things where special formulations are required. It may be that the active ingredient in the ointment is the same, but the emulsifiers, all of the stuff that goes in the cream itself, the inactive ingredients, may raise allergy issues or may raise special problems for the patient. So those are, it's kind of a special category that is kind of handled on a drug-by-drug basis. Very often, typically that pharmacy will be the best source of information about special funding that may be available. Or you need to deal with the insurance company directly. And it may be one of the areas where you need to, there are appeal, there are a whole series of procedures that we go through to deal with drug problems, problems like that, or drugs which aren't covered in the particular inhalers that are particularly a particular manufacturer or something, to try to deal with those problem issues. And that's definitely one of them. Yes.
I have a couple of comments. First, I want to encourage everybody to make an appointment with Shine because of my personal experience going there. And they looked at my stuff and they put it in the computer and turned around and said to me, do you want to keep the insurance plan you've got? Or would you prefer to save $2,000 a year for the exact same thing? I go to Shine every single year. I just made my appointment for November coming up at the Newton Library. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Second, I just had an experience where my doctor prescribed a drug. I have really good insurance. I get everything at Walgreens. I have almost no copays. I go to pick up this drug and the kid behind the counter said to me, do you know this has a really high copay? So I thought, $30, $40, how much is it? He said, oh, $420. For how long? 1 month. So I refused to take it, called my doctor, complained, asked if there were a generic. No. Was there an alternative? No. And then he said to me, well, some of my patients get this drug in Canada. So he gave me the website and the phone number for, I think it's called Can America. And I called up and they said to me, well, do you want the drug or do you want the generic? There is no generic in this country. So I said to him, I didn't think there was a generic. And they said, well, in Canada there is. How long have you had the generic? Over 2 years. So they give me the name of it. I Google it. The generic has been approved by the FDA, though it is not legal to sell in this country yet. So instead of $420 a month, I am paying $170 for 3 months. So anybody that gets stuck with a high drug price, I encourage you to check out what it would cost to get it in Canada.
Yeah, we don't have the Canada information. We don't have it. Shine doesn't have it. So.
Just another comment, there's something called GoodRx, and
Yep,
sometimes you
coupons.
can get a better deal using a coupon from GoodRx and just paying out of pocket and not going through insurance. But the
Yeah, there are several coupon programs that
Yeah,
are available. And they tend not to cover people 65 and older. I mean, if you have Medicare, they tend not to cover you, but they may with certain drugs.
Yeah. The other question I have is, I think last year there was a lowering of the cap of total out-of-pocket cost. And I was wondering if you could comment on that, and also what is predicted for this year. I mean, one of my issues has been, looking at worst-case scenario, going with the Medigap B versus going with the Advantage plans. The Advantage plans have higher co-insurance for things like, if you need outpatient infusions, if you need outpatient surgery, et cetera, whereas with Part B, it's all covered. So one thing that I'm thinking about for this year coming up is, do I switch to an Advantage plan that if there is a cap versus staying with what I have? So I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, there's a cap for the Advantage plans also. It was $8,000 2 years ago, it was $2,000 last year, and then $2,100.
That's just for
next
the
year.
medication, though.
That's from just medication.
What about an overall out-of-pocket?
Well, overall, well, it depends on, if you go, the original Medicare, sort of the track, there are 2 tracks.
Right.
I really should have started with. There are 2 tracks to go. One is the traditional track, original Medicare track. That one takes Medicare and looks at the 2 areas of Medicare coverage where there are big, huge gaps. One has to do with prescription drugs.
Right.
You fill that with a prescription drug plan. The other has to do with the cost share provisions, co-pays and deductibles. They're high with traditional Medicare. It's for Part B, anything in Part B is 20%. Medicare pays 80, 20% of potentially, millions of dollars, because there's no cap on what they'll pay for you, can be a lot. So you need something to cover that.
Right.
That's traditional Medicare.
Plus the Medicare.
To cover that copay business is Medigap policies. Blue Cross, MedX,
Right.
United has one. There are 6 or 7 in Massachusetts.
Is
So-
there an out-of-pocket?
There is no out-of-pocket. Well, it depends on, for instance, there's one, just as an example, the MedX Sapphire policy is kind of the middle of the middle policy for the MedX, the MedX world, Blue Cross world. For that one, you pay a one-time deductible.
Right.
It's the Medicare Part B deductible of $275, and that's it. You pay nothing else out of pocket. So there's no cap, because there's no obligation. You don't pay anything. You pay 0 except for your premium. Right. All of the costs are built into the premium. You pay the premium every month, but you pay no co-pays. Medicare Advantage is structured very differently, whereas traditional is based really on premiums and not on co-pays and deductibles. Medicare Advantage is based on a combination of the 2 in very different mixes depending on the plans you look at. Premiums could be 0. There are a number of plans that have 0 premiums. But when you look at the costs of utilization, 0 in traditional Medicare, and here it's all 20% co-insurance or $20 co-pays. It's all completely structured around co-pays and co-insurance and cost sharing. So you do cost sharing on utilization for that. Now, in the beginning of the year, when you haven't had any medical services, how do you compare 2 plans? You haven't had any services, you don't know what your medical needs are going to be like this year. Could be nothing, could be, God forbid, something much more than nothing. So what the government requires is that every company set a maximum out-of-pocket expense. This applies just to the medical side, so medical services. And that cap varies with the plan. And it also may vary depending on whether, some of the plans are really HMOs, really where you can get services only from providers who have an agreement with that plan. And if you get services from anybody else, you're just out of luck. Other plans called PPOs, you can get services in-network for one price or one copay amount, and out-of-network, if you can find providers who are still associated with it, are approved by the company, but out-of-network you pay more. So you'll often see in the charts, you'll see that the maximum out-of-pocket might be $4,000 for in-network services and $10,000 for out-of-network. So that gives you kind of your worst case. So you're either going to pay some amount on a flat basis for the original, or an amount which could vary from 0 to 10,000, depending on what happens to you during the year.
And so there's no cap across the board. It's different for each company.
No. No.
Hi, I have a vague sense in my head that have been cautions that going between an Advantage plan and regular Medicare, you can't always switch in one direction, and if you want to, it might be too late. Can you explain what that's about?
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know if
this has to do with the,
long-term care or,
yeah, the issue of switching and making changes in the plan. It means switching from one Medicare Advantage to another?
no, between Medicare Advantage and
And original,
standard, right?
switching back?
Right.
All right,
And I
so-
don't know if we're protected in Massachusetts, because I don't hear about that here really, but.
Well, there are two times when it's easy to do that. One is this enrollment period in the fall, this open enrollment period. There's also an open Medicare enrollment period from January 1st to March 31st of every year. So there's a gap between December 9th and the end of the year when you can't do it, but you can do it on either side.
But you can always go in the other direction.
No, you can go from Medicare Advantage to original. That's typically how it's used.
Okay.
You can also do switches within the programs. You can't get on a Medicare Advantage program during that period. You can't newly enroll in one. But if you're in one, you can get out of it or switch to another one.
Okay. Thanks.
They're all, it's just a number of these are in the booklet, but they're more examples. There are, you just have to ask. Yes? Oh, you were our 64-year-old.
I'm a what?
No, you were the one, you were interested in that question about the.
Well, no, I have a different question.
Or your,
Can you, if you have a Medigap plan, do you still have to get a separate drug plan?
yes.
Oh.
They really cover, the Medigap is geared to medical services, and the prescription drugs is just the prescription drugs.
And if you have an Advantage plan, that includes drugs, or you still have to get a separate?
Typically does, typically includes both. But the cost share structure is kind of built into it, in a
And
different
do all
way.
Advantage plans have coinsurance and deductibles and all that?
Yeah.
They all do?
Yeah, that's how what you'll find is that it may be that the more expensive ones have lower cost share requirements. And the same you'll find with the drug plans. You really have to look at both the premiums and the drug costs, because you'll find that some companies historically are low premiums, but and the software shows you this. When you look at the same drugs on two plans, a low premium plan is likely going to have higher drug costs.
Right.
So what it means is that if you're shopping, if you have no drugs at all now, then you want to enroll in the plan that has a very low premium. You don't care that they charge a lot for drugs because you don't have any.
Yeah, but you never know.
Well, yeah, I understand the moderations. And the reverse is true as well. You may end up, if you have some very expensive drugs, you may end up with a plan that has the best overall expense for the year with a much higher premium because the drug expenses are much lower. Mm-hmm. So the plan finder, the Medicare software that you can access through the Medicare.gov actually does all these calculations, even those are calculations relating to deductibles. So it gives you the number it gives a breakout, but the number it also gives you is your total cost for the year, taking into account both the premiums and the drug expenses, and also the deductible, if the deductible applies. So it really gives you an apples to apples ability to compare on costs.
And you can't get a supplemental plan or an Advantage plan in a family plan, right? It's all individual.
No, it's all individual, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last question. You don't have to answer this because it's kind of personal. Since you're, really a great expert in all this, I was just curious what you have.
I can't tell you.
You don't have?
No, I have, but we're not supposed to do
Yeah,
that.
that's okay.
I mean, the
just,
idea
you
is
know,
that you shouldn't be influenced by what I have, and because
just
it may not
curious.
be relevant to what you have. Oh, wait. I can't tell you.
Okay, we have about 7, 8 more minutes if there are any questions.
I want to say that October 15th is Simchat Torah. May I have an appointment with you for the 16th?
Yeah, all right, so usually the Shine counselors make their own appointments. But because of this is such a hectic time, and we've got a number of hours logged in on a schedule that we worked out to cover all 5 days, and mornings, nights, phone, in person. It was very elaborate. The appointments are made at the office, so it's the number that's in the booklet. They'll make you can ask for a particular counselor, but it may not be available for in-person appointments at day and time you want. It wouldn't be on Simcha Torah though.
I called
Yep.
Brookline to make a Shine appointment,
Yep.
and they're not taking reservations until the 15th.
Oh, well, I know Waltham is now, and because I happen to be in Waltham. Yeah.
Steve?
So one of the drugs that I take is not on the formulary.
Sorry, a little
Is this better?
better. Good.
Thank you. So I take a drug that is not on the Part D formulary of any of the companies here in Massachusetts or Advantage plans. And I think perhaps there's a way where my primary care physician could write an exception letter saying that I need this, it's reasonable and necessary for me to maintain my health. And so what is the procedure for that? Does that letter go to Medicaid, or does it go to the insurance company? How does that work?
Well, there's a whole series, there's a kind of a ladder of actions that we try to take. An exception is one of them, an appeal is another. And there's an agency, I didn't bring that. There's the Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences has a pharmacy drug assistance program that is terrific, and all they do is focus on problem drugs, on the formulary things, on the formulation, special formulations, and on drugs that are in low demand, on drugs that might be approved by Medicare for some purposes but not others, like all of the GL1s, that whole business with the weight loss drugs. Many of them are approved for diabetes and other heart conditions, but not for weight loss. So they may appear on the formulary, but you really don't know the details of how might this be approved by the company. So I haven't gotten involved in it directly. What we do is we talk to the doctor, have the client talk to the doctor about it. The doctors know about exceptions, and then they try to get them to write a letter.
So did you say Mass College of Pharmacy has a department that you found to be quite helpful?
Yeah, I have a bunch of books. I don't know, I guess I didn't bring it with me. I meant to bring a whole packet of stuff. If you just Google it, the Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. It's the Pharmacy Assistance Program. It's the students do it with faculty supervision. It's free and they're very good.
I'd like to praise Shine. We helped someone, a single older person who didn't have much experience with anything, and we found the help. It happened to be in Lynn, very helpful. I have a different question. Someone who has lived out of the country for many years and now is in the late 70s, would like to come back but never started the health, the Medicare. Is there any chance that that person could be part of it?
Well, all right, so Part A is free for people who qualify in terms of their work history and payments into the Medicare tax system during their lifetimes. If people don't qualify, and this is a typical case, someone who comes and who qualifies in terms of like permanent resident status, they have to have some if they're not citizens.
No, it's a citizen.
It's a citizen, okay, all right, so, yeah, no, that you can buy into Part A and B, and pay a premium for it. You're eligible for, you are eligible for Part A subject to a premium. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. It's not inexpensive. Great. It's there. There's also actually, apropos to that though, and this is something we talked about at a meeting today, there is a procedure for people of lower income to have that Part A premium picked up by the state. So it's something, this is an issue she could raise with a Shine counselor, and the whole thing is a little bit in flux, but it's definitely a possibility. Yes?
My question is about travel and foreign travel and what's covered. I have a Medigap policy, but it's none of these, so I don't know if where it falls.
Those are the only ones in Massachusetts.
Excuse me?
Those are the only policies in Massachusetts.
Oh,
so
well,
maybe,
mine is, it's Unicare, and you never heard of it? No, it's part of, I'm a Commonwealth of Mass retiree. And it's
okay,
part of
right.
GIC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would they know if they're shall I call them?
Yeah, you call them. Yeah, these are the.
Do they
all right,
know
so, right, the
these
retiree
titles
plans,
of Supplement 1, Supplement 1A?
Yeah, the employer plans themselves are, are individually negotiated, and the GIC set of things and set of options is something we coordinate with, but you have to ask them directly. Let me say a word though about foreign travel. Medicare itself does not cover travel, healthcare issues outside the country, emergency or anything else. But in Massachusetts, all of the Medigap policies do. They cover, treatment that you might get in any country, as long as the treatment is something that would be covered by Medicare if you were in the US. So you can't go there for services that aren't provided, but you can be there for that for any. The only difference between the way Blue Cross works, or the Medigap policies work in the US and outside, is that in the US, everything is done kind of in the background. It's all by assignment. You don't get any bills. You don't have to make claims. Your provider has both numbers, the Medigap number and the Medicare number, and they work out whatever they get paid is between them and the government. The only billing paperwork you'll see is this is not a bill thing every month. So, but for outside the services outside the country, it is by claim. The way it used to be here, with major medical plans, where you had to make a claim for services, and you had to work things out with the hospital about, a letter of credit or something, or a credit card or something, to get the door opened. But
all right, I think we're at time. I want to thank Don Freedman, who is our miraculous person. Dawn has kindly agreed to hang around for a little while. We have refreshments out in the atrium, so I hope you'll join us for a little coffee and schmooze. And Dawn, thank you all so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.